Okay, so in the discussion today, we kind of looked at two things. One was the soft select, another one was kind of doing some little hacks that I do in Maya to create these objects for your project that you're maybe working on, your room project. And I just kind of like share those with you. Um, Say, for instance, you've got these, I've made these pillows here, and I'll get them out of the way. Everybody's got pillows in their room, maybe, I don't know. Um, let's just start with the soft select. Soft select is different in terms of whenever you select things. Um, Say if you select your vertex right here, you're just moving things on certain planes, and you're just moving this one vertex. Um, this works for good for if you've got like say a chair or something, and you want to kind of give it some indentions. Well, the first thing is like if you're going to move this, say you want to make it look like someone sat on this couch here, you're just moving this down, you're moving the entire face down, so obviously you need some divisions in there. Back in Maya's. So, probably too many divisions. Soft select works really simple. It's pretty easy. I'll show you the magic trick. If you go to vertex or edge, you're just moving one vertex. Well, soft select, if you just press the B button, now you've got this radius, this ramp grade basically, and what that is the gradient of the percentage of vertexes that it selects surrounding it, and this works for edge, and it works for face mode too. Now, how do you control this gradient around it? You can do the short key, press B again, and left click, and then if you just drag to the left or to the right, you adjust your gradient raise by like that. And all I'm doing is pressing B, left clicking, and dragging to the left or right. Not, or you can go up or down, but it doesn't really work as well. Do it like that. Or if you go up to your toolbox, your tool setting, go down to your soft select setting, and you can adjust the fall off radius that way. That's a really big radius. It's going to affect a lot. Now we're affecting the entire object. Those are good for making indentions, making things kind of look like they've got a nice smooth wave to them. Instead of selecting all the vertexes, you can kind of like control the ramp. The less gradient I have, the less it affects. But you just have to make sure that it is switched off, because every time you switch on this or you try to move something, it will be stuck on that. Like if I go back to edge mode now, it's and always good to keep the gradient red, because that way you can kind of actually change the color down here if you wanted to, but it's good to keep it, because if you just press B, now it's gone. So that's awesome. I'm sure you'll utilize that. Now, what I want to talk about is tricks that I do involving the animation timeline up here, or the animation timeline down here, and it kind of help get you used to knowing what the timeline means. Now, a timeline is exactly what it means. It's a timeline. If I were to hit play over here, I've got my times playing, my animations playing. If I've animated anything, say if I were to go animate this pillow here, press S, go 70 frames, move it, press S again. You notice everything's red now. That's because I've keyframed it. Now if I scrub my timeline back and hit play, my pillow slowly moves, and you've created your first animation. Well, what we're going to be doing, what I like to do, is take instances from these keyframes and use those to my advantage when it comes to modeling, basically, because you can add modifiers in the FX tab up here, this cloth and this hair and all this stuff, and use your timeline, take frames, delete history on it, and voila, it's kind of a shortcut. It's how I drape cloths over tables or bedspreads instead of actually modeling them out. So say if I want to create this pillow right here, I'm going to undo all the animation. Well, I'll just delete it. So I'm going to kind of create the shape of the pillow, the skinny pillow. Bring it up here to 0 plane. I'm going to give it some divisions because it's not going to deform or anything like that without divisions in it. So probably too many. I'm just doing 20 straight down the line. Probably do less here. I'm going to kind of make the shape of, if you notice on the pillows here, I've got like these extruded edges. So this is my pre-planning stage. I'm going to extrude these edges out. So it looks like a book now, but if you think in terms of like before the pillow's fluffed up, this is the seam that's going to be running. If I were to smooth it, I want my pillow to have these nice seams like that was sewn together. So now what I'm going to do is, if you don't see your animation timeline, you need to make sure that you're in the classic mode. But if you're in standard mode, you're not going to be able to see it. Go to this here shelf up here and go to classic. Then you're going to want to go to your shelf over here, and actually not your animation, but you want to go to your FX channel. I'll scrub my timeline back. There's a lot of things you may run into problematic wise, and sometimes the best thing is just to reset your whole Maya scene and start over if it's not working, and we'll get to that. But for now, the best thing to do is to have your standard and your classic, or your classic view and your FX channel. So I'm going to go up here to ncloth, and I'm going to create an ncloth, but I'm going to have an object selected. So it kind of grays everything out. Now, if you hit play over here, this thing is just starting to fall and you don't really know what's going on. If your frame is already at 120, it's already ended, you can extend the frame, the timeline. I just set mine at 300 to give mine enough time. And that's just, but you're probably at that right there as a default. So just type in 300 or 400, however long you wish to have the play line or timeline extended. But you'll notice what I did is I made this thing a cloth material, so it's giving it gravity, so it just infinitely falls. But it also, the pressure of the gravity also affects the actual shape of it. So if I zoom in on it, you can see the way the shape is kind of deformed. And I probably could use some more divisions in there, but we'll go with this for right now. Scrub it back to 0. And if you notice over here, it added another attribute. It added this nucleus and this ncloth, and those are kind of important. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of this gravity, because I don't want it falling, I just want it puffing up. So I'm going to go to my nucleus, my attribute editor, let's see my gravity tab. You can crank it up and make it fall faster, but I'm just going to keep it at 0. And then I play it, and you notice nothing is happening. Nothing's puffing up or anything. That's because there's no pressure basically on it right now. So I'll need to go to my ncloth shape, ncloth shape 1, and you notice your pressure is down to 0. So just crank that up just a little bit to begin with and see what happens. Then if you hit the play button, now you've got this pressure coming in here like this. And it kind of stabilizes after a while, which is cool. But if you scrub it back to like this beginning up here and you find like a deformation shape that you like, that right there, you can stop, you can pause it, Basically, I like that shape right there. That's got my stuffing in it. I'll just smooth this over. Kind of starts looking like a pillow, puffed up pillow, maybe too puffy. You can solve that just by uh, in the pre-planning, just scaling it smaller. Um, so I like that frame right there. Now the problem with this is basically if you move it, you can't move anything. Basically, it's stuck to that timeline and that nucleus in that cloth, and you need to separate that. So the way we can do that is just edit, delete by type, history. Now this has, if you hit the play, it has no more animation on it basically, and this is its own separate object. So here's a little trick I found out too. If you go and you don't want this stuff in your scene, which I wouldn't, if it's not being of use, I wouldn't keep it in there. If you go and start deleting it, you're going to have problems. It's going to revert back and connect it to its original shape. So I would say before you do that, take the object and duplicate it. Control D. So you have two objects. This is your new one here. This is your original. Delete the history on the new one, and then just delete the originals. And lo and behold, you got your pillow now. Clean, it's its own object, nothing's instancing it or anything. And you can kind of take and go into vertex mode, soft select that, kind of make some big shapes on it. Somebody pushed in my pillows, cushions. Now I'm angry. Wallered all over my couch. So it's kind of a way of, instead of trying to sculpt this, and we can talk more about the sculpting tool later on, using that animation timeline to basically freeze frames and grab a shape that you want to. You just got to remember to delete the history and duplicate it, kind of step by step, and it'll work out good. Then you can duplicate this and change the shape of it a little bit, and all of a sudden you've got use some pillows for your couch or your couch. So that brings me to, if you wanted like a throw blanket or a curtain of sorts, it would work basically the same way. This is going to be my bed or my table. I'm going to use a plane, create a plane. Go up here and create a plane. Make it bigger than the object that I want it to drape on. I need to give it some divisions, because basically if I try to add a cloth modifier to this, it's just going to fall, and like there's no place for the polygons to actually bend. So we give it a nice little division count. And the way we're going to work this one is that we're going to add the ncloth to it and let it drape, but you also need to make a collider from this right here. So let's add an ncloth to this plane. Just fall straight through. That's not what I want. I need to select the object that's going to collide with. Create passive collider. So now we have this cloth that drapes right on it, and if you just keep it going, it's going to eventually, the gravity is going to pull it off of the actual object itself. Now you can adjust that by the pressure. Turn it down. If you turn it way up, it's going to, or the gravity on it. Turn the gravity down a little bit, and it'll take longer for it to fall off. But basically that position right there is what I'm looking for. A nice little bedspread drape. In class, I made another collider, another plane, for the floor. And I made that a passive collider as well. So if this was a bedspread, you could kind of have it in the pressure up. Maybe adjust the gravity. It's starting to fall off of there. Bring gravity back up. Oh, that's fine right there. Take it back and get rid of this plane here. I kind of like it like that. So, and that works the same way. Basically, I'll find a position that I like right there. I like the way that looks on my bedspread or on my bed. I'm going to delete the history on that. And I'm looking at everything over here so I can keep track of things. You can start deleting, but if you delete that ncloth, then you have that original shape tied to that object, and that's not what I want. I just don't duplicate this, Control D, and duplicate it. Then I delete all this, the original. You may find an easier way to get rid of this stuff. Sometimes you can export the object to another scene or an OBJ and it will delete all that on there, but for me it's just easiest just delete. And then you can kind of smooth this over. You can look at it. You can go ahead and move the objects how you want to. Put your pillows over here. You scale them down a little bit. Rotate that one so to fool people into thinking it's not the same pillow. And voila. Now you've kind of got like a little bed prepared that kind of looks like a nice little comfortable bed. Yeah, so those are my hacks on using the animation timeline, using soft select and using the animation timeline to freeze frames and utilize that mold basically with the ncloth. If for some reason your timeline is running really fast, you can always right click on it and just playback speed. You could switch between these two, play every frame free. Sometimes that will make it go really fast, yeah. But if it's going too fast, you want to kind of go playback speed real time. But try putting two colliders in there and getting like maybe a half made, like create a plane for the floor, then create the bed, then create a plane for the cloth, and make the bedspread the ncloth, the top plane, and then add the two bottom colliders and kind of get it to fall halfway, adjusting that pressure and that gravity, kind of get it half made on the bed. And yeah, it's just fun to mess around with and play with. The example I showed you of the girl that made the drapes hanging over her bed, that's how she did it. She just created these really long planes and draped them over there and found that position that looked good, instead of like modeling a plane and moving vertexes to every single position, which would just take forever. So okay, well that's it, and yeah, have fun with that, and we will move forward in the next discussion and videos. Thanks a lot.